Megan had moved to Pinebrook for a fresh start. Her past was filled with chaos, and she longed for peace. She quickly fell in love with the town's quiet charm and friendly neighbors. Her new home was a cozy cottage on the edge of the woods, a perfect escape from her troubled history. Life seemed perfect until the night she found the first note. It was pinned to her front door, written in a jagged, almost frantic script. "I see you." At first, Megan brushed it off as a prank. But then the phone calls started. At first, they were silent, just the sound of someone breathing on the other end. Then came the whispers, "I'm watching you." The fear crept in slowly, like a dark cloud blotting out the sun. Megan tried to rationalize it, convincing herself it was a bad joke, someone's idea of fun. But the incidents escalated. Her car was keyed with the same message, "I see you." She felt eyes on her wherever she went, at the grocery store, the post office, even her favorite cafe. The sense of being watched became suffocating, a weight she couldn't shake off. One night, as she was about to fall asleep, she heard a soft tapping at her window. Megan's heart pounded in her chest as she pulled back the curtain, only to see nothing but the dark silhouette of the forest. Yet she couldn't ignore the prickling sensation that someone was out there, staring back at her. Desperation led Megan to install security cameras around her property. She hoped the cold, objective lens of technology would catch the intruder. Days passed without incident, but her paranoia grew. She barely slept, jumping at every creak and rustle. Then one morning, as she reviewed the footage, she saw it. In the dead of night, a figure emerged from the woods, moving with eerie purpose toward her house. The camera caught only glimpses of a hand here, a shadow there, but it was enough to confirm her fears. Someone was stalking her. She went to the police, but with no concrete evidence, they couldn't do much. The frustration and fear gnawed at her. She felt trapped in her own home, a prisoner to the unseen menace. Her friends suggested she leave town for a while, but Megan was determined to reclaim her sense of security. She couldn't let the stalker win. She took to carrying pepper spray, and a knife became her constant companion. One evening, as she returned from work, Megan found her door slightly ajar. Panic surged through her as she stepped inside, gripping the knife tightly. The house was eerily silent. As she moved through the rooms, she saw the message scrawled on her living room wall in red paint. "You can't hide." Megan froze, the knife slipping from her trembling hand. She felt the weight of the stalker's presence, a suffocating dread that left her gasping for breath. Tears streamed down her face as she backed away, her mind racing with fear. Suddenly, she heard a noise from the kitchen. Her eyes widened in terror as she saw a shadowy figure emerging from the darkness. The stalker's eyes gleamed with a malevolent glint, his twisted smile sending chills down her spine. Without thinking, Megan turned and fled, her heart pounding in her chest. She dashed through the house, her vision blurred by tears. She could hear the stalker's footsteps behind her, a relentless pursuit that sent her into a state of sheer panic. She stumbled into her bedroom, slamming the door shut behind her. Her hands shook as she fumbled with the lock, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of her own heartbeat. Megan crawled under the bed, her body trembling with fear. She covered her mouth to stifle her sobs, every creak and groan of the house amplified in the darkness. She could hear the stalker moving through the house, his footsteps slow and deliberate. "Come out, Megan," he called, his voice dripping with malice. "You can't hide from me." Megan squeezed her eyes shut, praying he wouldn't find her. Her mind raced with thoughts of escape, but every plan seemed futile. She was trapped, a mouse in a cage with a hungry cat. The stalker began searching the room, his movements methodical. Megan's heart stopped as she saw his feet moving closer to the bed. She held her breath, her body trembling uncontrollably. He paused, his feet inches from her hiding spot. Megan bit down on her lip, the taste of blood mixing with her tears. She could hear him breathing, a slow, methodical sound that sent chills through her body. The stalker suddenly knelt down and peered under the bed. Megan's eyes widened in terror as their gazes locked. She screamed and tried to scramble out from under the bed, but he grabbed her ankle, yanking her back. Megan kicked and thrashed, her screams echoing through the room. She managed to kick the stalker in the face, causing him to loosen his grip. Seizing the moment, she crawled out from under the bed and dashed toward the door. The stalker recovered quickly, lunging at her. Megan grabbed a lamp from the bedside table and swung it at him, the glass shattering on impact. He stumbled back, giving her a precious few seconds to escape. Megan ran down the hallway, her heart pounding in her chest. She could hear the stalker recovering, his footsteps pounding behind her. She dashed down the stairs, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The front door was her only hope. She reached the door and fumbled with the lock, her hands shaking. Just as she got it open, the stalker grabbed her from behind, pulling her back into the house. Megan screamed, kicking and flailing, desperate to break free. The struggle was intense. Megan managed to break free and sprinted toward the back door. She threw it open and ran into the night, the darkness of the woods enveloping her. Branches tore at her clothes and skin as she ran, her body fueled by sheer terror. "Come back, Megan," the stalker shouted, his voice echoing through the trees. "You can't run forever." Tears streamed down her face as she pushed herself to keep running. She stumbled over roots and rocks, her body screaming in pain. The woods seemed endless, a maze of shadows and fear. Suddenly, she tripped and fell, landing hard on the ground. Megan cried out in pain, her ankle throbbing. She tried to stand, but the pain was too intense. She looked around, her eyes wild with terror. The stalker was getting closer. She could hear him crashing through the woods, his breath heavy with anticipation. Megan crawled to a nearby tree, her body trembling with fear. She pressed her back against the trunk, trying to make herself as small as possible. "Where are you, Megan?" the stalker taunted, his voice dripping with malice. "I know you're here somewhere." Megan covered her mouth to stifle her sobs, her heart pounding in her chest. She prayed he wouldn't find her, but the sound of his footsteps grew louder, closer. She could see his shadow moving through the trees, searching for her. Just when she thought she was doomed, she saw a glimmer of light through the trees. It was faint, but it was there, a distant porch light from one of the neighboring houses. Megan's hope surged. If she could just make it to that house, she might be safe. Megan waited until the stalker moved away. Then she forced herself to stand, ignoring the pain in her ankle. She limped toward the light, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The house seemed so far away, but she had to try. She moved as quickly and quietly as she could, her eyes darting around for any sign of the stalker. She could still hear him searching the woods, his frustration growing. Megan bit down on her lip, focusing on the light ahead. Suddenly, she heard a shout. "There you are!" The stalker had spotted her. Megan's heart raced as she broke into a limping run, the pain in her ankle nearly unbearable. She could hear the stalker closing in, his footsteps pounding behind her. She pushed herself harder, the light from the house growing brighter. Just as she reached the edge of the yard, the stalker grabbed her arm, yanking her back. Megan screamed, her body twisting as she tried to break free. She could see the front door of the house, just a few yards away. "You're mine now," the stalker hissed, his grip tightening. Megan fought with all her strength, kicking and scratching. She managed to break free, stumbling toward the house. She pounded on the door, screaming for help. "Please, someone help me." The door flew open, and a man stood there, his eyes wide with shock. Megan collapsed into his arms, her body trembling. "Help me," she sobbed. "He's trying to kill me." The man pulled her inside, slamming the door shut. He quickly locked it, then turned to Megan. "Are you okay?" Megan shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "He's out there. He's going to get in." The man grabbed a phone and called the police, his voice urgent. "There's a woman here being chased by a stalker. We need help now." Megan and the man listened as the stalker pounded on the door, his shouts muffled by the walls. "You can't hide from me, Megan." The minutes felt like hours as they waited for the police. Megan clung to the man, her body shaking with fear. She could hear the sirens approaching, but the stalker was relentless, trying to break down the door. Finally, the police arrived, their lights flashing outside. The stalker, realizing he was outnumbered, disappeared into the woods. The officers searched for hours but found no trace of him. Megan knew this was far from over. The stalker was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for another chance. The police promised to keep an eye on her, but Megan couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled over her. Months passed, and life in Pinebrook slowly returned to normal, but Megan was forever changed. She moved to a new house, installed more security measures, and took self-defense classes. Despite the precautions, she couldn't escape the constant fear. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind sent her heart racing. She slept with one eye open, the knife never far from reach. She saw the stalker in every shadow, felt his presence in every room. The police increased their patrols, but Megan knew they couldn't watch her all the time. And so, Megan lived her life in a state of perpetual alertness, forever haunted by the shadows that followed. If you enjoyed this story and want more spine-chilling tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes open. The shadows are always watching.